And we are joined this morning by MTN's Edgar Cedillo. Edgar, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. It's always a hoot to be here in the morning.
It's a fun time on Montana this morning. Now, we have a lot to talk about today. You know, you do such a great job covering city and county issues, and that's why I wanted to have you on to sort of break down some of these ballot initiatives that people are going to be voting on, either absentee or in person come November. So these three that we're going to be talking about right here mainly have to do with folks living in the Belgrade area. So right off the top, let's start talking about the Belgrade Senior Center. That's going to be on the ballot this year. Break us down a little bit about what this levy entails.
So this one is essentially asking voters to approve 8 mills, which would raise about $290,000 a year. The thing that Belgrade wants to do is improve their senior center activities, is from what they're telling us. So they just want to be able to attract more people, but obviously to attract more people, that's going to cost a little more. So they definitely just want to keep up with those costs is what they're telling us. So it's a pretty interesting one, especially just because we have seen some of these senior center levies come up on the ballot, especially throughout Gallatin County in the past. So this one is essentially asking for 8 mills. So it's a pretty straightforward one.
All right, that'll be an interesting one to watch coming up. Another interesting one that really caught my eye when I saw it, this has to do with Belgrade School District as well as the city of Belgrade. They're doing an exchange site. So I asked you when I first saw this on the initiative, tell us a little bit about what this means, an exchange site between the city and the school, and why people need to vote on that.
Yeah, so essentially state law requires this one, but essentially even in talking with City of Belgrade officials, the City of Belgrade, no surprise, surprise, it's growing really fast. And because it's growing so fast, so is the city department itself. So they're kind of all over the place in Belgrade, and essentially this swap, the school district would get the city hall facility, and then the city would now get the school district facility where they're currently at. So essentially they're just swapping spots so that the city has a little more room, the school district kind of gets a little bit of a downsize. But state law requires that voters have to approve this little swap. So pretty interesting to see just because of how fast Belgrade is growing. You can definitely see the growing pains of the city happening, especially on the ballot.
Absolutely, it's reflected right there for the voters to see. Now, finally, this is sort of a deja vu that we're seeing on the ballot this year. This is the Central Valley Fire District, and we've done plenty of stories about this levy in years past, not just this year. So tell us a little bit about why we're seeing this again, maybe what changes have been made to this time around versus in years past.
So like you said, it is kind of a bit of a deja vu. The city, or the Central Valley Fire District, did propose this last year. This year it looks a little different because it's slightly less mills than what was proposed last year, but essentially the grand scope of things is that they're pretty short staffed and they're asking essentially more money for staffing personnel because they want to be able to keep that. In talking with the fire chief and just fire officials over at the district, they're essentially pretty worried about how long response times are getting, and they want to be able to keep up with that. Obviously, living in the valley isn't cheap, and they also want to be able to pay their personnel a livable wage. So that's essentially what this mill is asking for. This would raise about $4 million a year if this passes, and then for someone that lives in Belgrade, the average cost for someone that lives in $600,000 valued home, it would cost them about $180 per year if this passes. Should be interesting because last year, essentially the same question that was on the ballot passed around 66% or so. So about 2/3 of voters did reject that. So it should be interesting to see how this one goes around. This year.
Yeah, absolutely. Edgar, can't thank you enough for your research and your continued reporting on city and county issues. Really appreciate your insight.
Appreciate it, Jane. Always good to be here.
All right, now we're going to take a short break here on Montana this morning. When we come back, though, Matt is going to have a look at that forecast.